Have you ever wondered why the same types of people keep showing up in your life? Why certain patterns repeat themselves no matter how hard you try to escape them? Why you attract exactly what you desperately try to avoid? There's a hidden force at work here, something Carl Jung called the shadow, and it's pulling your strings in ways you can't even imagine. In this video, we're going to explore one of the most disturbing yet liberating truths about human psychology. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you hide. This isn't about positive thinking or manifestation. This is about the dark magnetic pull of your unconscious mind, the parts of yourself you've buried so deep you've forgotten they exist, but they haven't forgotten about you. They're actively shaping your reality, drawing people and situations into your life that mirror exactly what you refuse to acknowledge about yourself. If you're ready to understand why your life keeps presenting you with the same uncomfortable patterns, if you're brave enough to look into the mirror of your own hidden nature, then keep watching. Because what you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about attraction, relationships, and the invisible forces that govern your existence. Carl Jung discovered something that most people spend their entire lives running from. We are not who we think we are. Beneath the carefully constructed persona we present to the world lies what he called the shadow, the collection of all the traits, impulses, and aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or hidden away. But here's where it gets disturbing. The shadow doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It becomes a magnetic field that attracts exactly what we're trying to avoid. It's like carrying around an invisible beacon that signals to the world. Here are my deepest wounds, my greatest fears, my most shameful secrets. Think about it, that person who constantly attracts narcissists. They're usually hiding their own narcissistic tendencies, the individual who keeps finding themselves in toxic relationships. They're often running from their own capacity for toxicity, the one who claims to hate drama, but somehow drama always finds them. They're concealing their own dramatic nature. This isn't victim blaming, it's shadow recognition. Jung understood that what we resist in ourselves becomes a magnet for external experiences. The traits we judge most harshly in others are often the very traits we've exiled from our own self-concept. You see, the psyche has its own intelligence, its own way of seeking balance. When you hide a part of yourself, you create an energetic void, an incompleteness that seeks resolution. The universe, in its strange wisdom, sends you people and situations that force you to confront what you've been avoiding. But most people miss this entirely. They blame their circumstances, their bad luck, their inability to find good people. They never stop to ask the crucial question: what am I hiding that keeps attracting this into my life? The shadow operates through projection. We project our hidden aspects onto others, then find ourselves inexplicably drawn to or repelled by these people. That person who irritates you beyond reason, they're likely reflecting a shadow aspect you refuse to own. That toxic pattern you keep repeating, it's your shadow trying to integrate itself back into your conscious awareness. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But he went further than that. He understood that our irritations, our attractions, our seemingly random encounters are all shadow communications messages from the parts of ourselves we've forgotten we possess. Let's go deeper into this psychological phenomenon. When you deny a part of yourself, you don't eliminate it, you give it autonomous power. It begins to operate independently, outside your conscious control, creating what Jung called an autonomous complex. These complexes have their own agenda, their own intelligence, their own way of manifesting in your life. They attract people and situations that will activate them, that will bring them into the light of consciousness whether you want it or not. Consider the person who prides themselves on being nice and peaceful. They've likely buried their anger, their aggression, their capacity for conflict. What happens? They attract angry people, aggressive situations, constant conflict. Their shadow is trying to show them, look, this is also part of you. You cannot be whole without integrating this aspect. Or take someone who has hidden their vulnerability, who presents themselves as strong and self-sufficient. They attract needy people, situations that require them to be the caretaker, circumstances that drain their energy. Their shadow is saying, you need care too. You have needs too. Stop hiding this truth. The mechanism is ruthless in its precision. Whatever you've disowned about yourself will show up in your external reality until you reclaim it. This is why self-improvement often fails. You're trying to improve yourself while simultaneously rejecting parts of yourself that are essential to your wholeness. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward psychological wholeness. But it's not a comfortable process. It requires you to face the parts of yourself you've deemed unacceptable, to integrate what you've rejected, to own what you've projected onto others. The shadow doesn't just attract people, it attracts entire life patterns. Financial struggles, relationship failures, career sabotage, health issues, all can be expressions of shadow material seeking integration. Your outer world becomes a mirror of your inner world, specifically the parts of your inner world you refuse to acknowledge. This is why simply changing your external circumstances rarely works long-term. You can leave a toxic relationship, but if you haven't integrated the shadow aspects that attracted it, you'll recreate the same dynamic with someone else. You can change jobs, but if you haven't faced the parts of yourself that created the old situation, the new job will eventually mirror the same patterns. The shadow is patient. It will wait lifetimes if necessary. It will use every person, every situation, every experience to try to wake you up to what you're hiding from yourself. And the more you resist, the more dramatic and painful these wake-up calls become. Now let's examine the specific mechanisms through which your hidden aspects create your reality. Jung discovered that projection is not just a psychological defense mechanism, it's a creative force that literally shapes your experience of the world. When you project a shadow trait onto someone else, you're not just seeing something that isn't there. You're actually calling forth that trait in the other person, or you're attracting people who naturally embody that trait. Your psyche is seeking completion, seeking to experience all aspects of itself, even the ones you've rejected. This is why you might find yourself saying things like, "I always attract crazy people," or "all men are," or "women always." These statements reveal active projection. You're not attracting these people randomly. You're attracting them because they're carrying aspects of your own psyche that you refuse to acknowledge. The process works like this. First, you experience a trait in yourself, perhaps anger, neediness, manipulation, or vulnerability. But instead of integrating it consciously, you judge it as bad or unacceptable. You then repress it, push it into the unconscious, and create a false identity that excludes this trait. But the psyche won't tolerate this split indefinitely. It begins to attract experiences that will force you to confront what you've hidden. You might attract people who are overtly angry if you've hidden your anger, or people who are manipulative if you've denied your own capacity for manipulation. The attraction isn't random. It's precisely calibrated to your specific shadow content. This is why different people attract different types of dysfunction. Your shadow attracts its own particular brand of mirror experiences. Jung observed that we're particularly triggered by people who embody our shadow traits in an unintegrated way. They're showing us what we look like when we express these traits unconsciously. Our disgust, our judgment, our intense reactions are all signs that we're seeing our own shadow reflected back to us. But here's the twist. The same trait that repels us also attracts us. We're fascinated by what we've hidden in ourselves. This is why people often find themselves drawn to exactly the types of people they claim to want to avoid. The shadow creates a magnetic pull toward what it needs to integrate. The more strongly you deny a trait, the more powerfully it will appear in your external reality. The person who insists they hate drama, but whose life is constant chaos, the individual who claims to never lie, but attracts pathological liars, the one who prides themselves on being independent, but keeps attracting codependent relationships, these are all examples of shadow magnetism. Relationships are the primary arena where shadow projection plays out. Every significant relationship in your life is a mirror, reflecting back aspects of your psyche that you may not even know exist. This is why intimate relationships can be so triggering. They're designed to reveal your shadow. Your romantic partner, in particular, is often carrying your most significant shadow projections. The qualities that initially attracted you to them are often the very qualities you've disowned in yourself. The traits that later irritate you about them are typically shadow aspects you refuse to acknowledge. If you're attracted to confident people, you might be hiding your own confidence. If you're drawn to creative types, you may have buried your own creativity. If you find yourself repeatedly attracted to unavailable people, you might be hiding your own unavailability or fear of intimacy. The shadow doesn't just influence who you attract, it influences how you behave in relationships. Those moments when you act in ways that surprise even yourself, when you become someone you don't recognize, when you find yourself repeating patterns you swore you'd never repeat, this is your shadow taking control. Jung understood that projection is a two-way street. While you're projecting your shadow onto your partner, they're projecting their shadow onto you. You're both serving as containers for each other's disowned aspects. This is why relationships can feel so intense, so consuming, so transformative, they're literally reshaping your psyche. The health of a relationship depends largely on how much shadow work both partners are willing to do. When both people take responsibility for their projections, when they own their shadow aspects instead of constantly seeing them in the other person, the relationship becomes a vehicle for mutual growth and integration. But when people remain unconscious of their shadow projections, relationships become battlegrounds. Each person fights against seeing their own shadow, instead insisting that the problem lies entirely with the other person. This creates toxic dynamics, power struggles, and ultimately, relationship failure. The pattern repeats until someone develops the courage to look inward, to reclaim their projections, to integrate their shadow. Only then can they attract and maintain healthy relationships, because they're no longer unconsciously seeking someone to carry their disowned aspects. The question becomes, how do you break these patterns? How do you stop attracting what you hide? The answer lies in shadow integration, the conscious process of reclaiming and integrating your disowned aspects. Shadow integration is not about becoming your worst impulses or acting out destructively. It's about acknowledging these aspects of yourself with consciousness, compassion, and wisdom. It's about recognizing that you contain multitudes light and dark, good and evil, strength and weakness, and that wholeness requires embracing all of it. The first step is recognition. You must become aware of your shadow projections. Pay attention to what triggers you about others. Notice the patterns in who you attract and what situations keep repeating in your life. These are breadcrumbs leading you back to your shadow. Jung suggested that whatever you judge most harshly in others is likely a shadow aspect. Your strongest reactions, your most intense triggers, your deepest irritations, these are all pointing toward parts of yourself you've hidden away. Instead of judging others, ask yourself, how might this trait exist in me? Where have I hidden this aspect of myself? The second step is owning. This requires brutal honesty with yourself. You must acknowledge that you possess the capacity for all human traits, both the ones you admire and the ones you despise. You must admit that you're not who you think you are, that your self-concept is incomplete, that you've been living a partial truth. This process is deeply uncomfortable. It requires you to shatter your idealized self-image and confront the fullness of your humanity. But it's also incredibly liberating. When you stop expending energy hiding from yourself, when you stop fighting against your own nature, you become free to channel all aspects of yourself constructively. The third step is integration. This means finding healthy ways to express your shadow traits. If you've hidden your anger, find constructive ways to assert yourself. If you've denied your vulnerability, practice authentic emotional expression. If you've rejected your power, learn to lead with integrity. Integration doesn't mean becoming shadow-possessed or acting out destructive. It means bringing consciousness to all aspects of yourself so that they can serve your highest good rather than operating autonomously and destructively. As you integrate your shadow, you'll notice that the external patterns begin to shift. You'll stop attracting people who embody your disowned traits because you're no longer projecting these traits onto others. You'll start attracting people who are also doing their own shadow work, who are conscious and integrated rather than unconsciously driven by their shadows. When you stop hiding from yourself, when you embrace your full humanity, something magical happens. You stop being a victim of unconscious attraction. You stop repeating the same painful patterns. You start attracting people and situations that support your growth rather than trigger your wounds. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming a complete, integrated individual. It's not about perfection, it's about wholeness. It's not about eliminating your shadow, it's about befriending it, integrating it, and using its energy constructively. The person who has integrated their shadow is no longer driven by unconscious compulsions. They're free to choose consciously. They attract others who are also conscious and integrated. Their relationships become sources of joy rather than sources of drama. Their life becomes an expression of their authentic self rather than a battleground between their conscious and unconscious minds. But this freedom comes with responsibility. Once you become aware of your shadow projections, you can no longer blame others for your experiences. You must take full responsibility for what you attract, for the patterns you create, for the reality you manifest through your unconscious projections. This is both terrifying and empowering. Terrifying because it means you can no longer play the victim. Empowering because it means you have the power to change your reality by changing yourself. Jung understood that the goal of psychological development is not to become perfect, but to become whole. Wholeness includes everything: your light and your shadow, your strengths and your weaknesses, your conscious desires and your unconscious drives. When you embrace this wholeness, you stop attracting what you hide because you're no longer hiding anything. You become a magnetic force for authenticity, for growth, for conscious relationship. You attract people who see you fully and love you completely. You create a life that reflects your integrated self rather than your fragmented projections. The journey of shadow integration is not easy, but it's the only path to genuine freedom. It's the only way to stop being unconsciously driven by forces you don't understand. It's the only way to create a life that truly serves your highest good. So I ask you, what are you hiding that keeps attracting pain into your life? What aspects of yourself have you disowned that are now showing up in your external reality? What patterns keep repeating because you refuse to look at their source within yourself? The answer to these questions holds the key to your liberation. Your shadow is not your enemy, it's your teacher, your guide, your path to wholeness. When you stop running from it and start embracing it, you discover that what you thought was your greatest weakness was actually your greatest strength waiting to be integrated. The choice is yours. You can continue to attract what you hide, to repeat the same patterns, to blame external circumstances for your internal reality. Or you can begin the journey of shadow integration, reclaim your projections, and create a life that reflects your authentic, integrated self. Your shadow is waiting. Your wholeness is waiting. Your freedom is waiting. The question is, are you ready to stop hiding and start living? If this message resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in these patterns, if you're ready to begin your own shadow integration journey, let me know in the comments. Right, I'm ready to integrate. And let's see how many people are prepared to stop attracting what they hide and start creating what they truly desire. And remember, the journey of individuation is not a destination, it's a way of being. It's a commitment to ongoing self-discovery, to continuous integration, to lifelong growth. Your shadow will always have more to teach you. Your wholeness will always be deepening. Your freedom will always be expanding. The path is not easy, but it's the only path to authentic living.